What if I told you that everything that I struggled to learn over the last 3 years, I am now teaching other people in just 12 weeks? Because here's the truth, starting a care business isn't actually the hardest part. The hardest part is knowing what to do next. A lot of people ask me, how do I find clients? Do I register with CQC first? How much money do I need to start a care business? Should I choose domiciliary care or supported living? Where do I actually begin? Those were the same questions that I was asking myself too when I first started my own care business. When I started my business, I didn't have anybody to actually show me the roadmap. I had to figure it all out on my own. I made mistakes. I spent money on the wrong things. I had to learn compliance, tendering, recruitment, CQC, finance, and leadership. But every lesson became part of my journey and mostly part of my story and the reasons why I set up the Care Business School. Some people ask me, so why did you really set up the Care Business School? Don't you have enough on your plate? But I didn't just create the Care Business School because I just wanted another business. I realized that if someone would have shown me the roadmap from day one, it would have saved me a lot of time, stress, and money. So this week we officially started our first cohort on how to start your own care business. In today's video, I am taking you behind the scenes of our very first session. You'll see what I'm teaching and the conversations that we are having and why I believe that we need more ethical, knowledgeable care providers building businesses that genuinely change people's lives. So stay with me and let's go inside the Care Business School. So obviously what we're going to cover today, we are talking about your vision, the reasons why you've decided to set up a care business. Who are you planning to serve? Which service user groups are you wanting to support or to work with? And the values that will define your service. We'll also look at the service types. A lot of people, they find it easy to actually start with the domiciliary care as well as supported living because dom care is not as complicated as accommodation-based services. We'll also focus on market research, right? Proving obviously that there is real local demand where you are currently residing. If not, if there is no demand where you live, then we're looking at the neighboring local authorities and what that would mean for your business. And the last one that we'll look at is the honest financials. How much money would you actually need or investment would you need to start and set up a care business? I'm trying my best here to support people who are not going to quit on themselves. This is the reason why the Care Business School has been set up, because I've spoken to quite a lot of care providers or people who have aspired to open up care businesses. And most of the time I hear it's quite difficult, or I'm juggling a 9-to-5 job whilst also trying to set up. And because of that, the business now has been open for 2 years or a year. I've registered the company, but I've not had time or, enough time or money to put into the business, right? So in terms of the profession itself, we are nurses, social workers, care coordinators, care assistants, support workers, right? We've got the skills and the knowledge to actually start up care businesses. And the main thing is about the compassionate side of it. How empathetic are we in this industry? And I think obviously if you lead with the empathy side and the compassionate side, you will always build a very good business that not only just benefits yourself, but then benefits the people that you serve. So what I would say is that if you are working with children, right, I would maybe advise you to look at children's services, right? If you've been working with adults with learning disabilities, look at adults with learning disabilities, and so on and so on. Obviously, you can expand with time, and look at other service user groups. But one of the things that I asked when you are applying for tenders is, how much experience do you have, right? And as a new care provider, it can be very difficult for you to evidence the level of experience that you've got, unless if you've worked within that field. So if you've been, like, for instance, I was a social worker for many years, but then I mainly worked with adults. And then from then, I worked with adults with learning disabilities. So most of my experience came from working with adults with learning disabilities. So when I then set up a care business, I specialized in adults with learning disabilities. So right now, we are known as a provider that provides support services to people with learning disabilities. But yet at the same time, that is transferable, and we can transfer it to work with people with dementia, right, and people with mental health needs. So now, when we have expanded, we have now looked at supporting people with dementia and people with, mental health needs. So you need to think carefully about who you will serve. When you complete your CQC registration or application form, those are one of the questions that are there. For myself, for instance, I was very specific that it was people with learning disabilities and autism, people with dementia, mental health, because I had quite a lot of experience working with those service user groups. And the reason why I want you to consider this is that it will come a point where you're now applying for tenders, but as a new care provider, it becomes a bit challenging on evidencing your experience in those service user groups. But then if you've worked within that field and you've worked with people with LD, dementia, mental health, it's easy for you to actually respond to some of the questions that they ask. So also another thing is looking at what problems do you want to solve. Me specifically, I was a social work team manager when I started my care business, and I used to respond to a lot of complaints. I was a safeguarding manager as well within my team, and most of the issues that always cropped up were families saying we're tired of being given different faces on each visit. And there were issues about poor care. Some things were just common sense that, as a care provider, you shouldn't be doing that. So why are you doing this? And I was held up in safeguarding meetings. That's what made me want to start a care business, because I was just getting a bit fed up with, watching and listening to all concerns of poor care. And I thought, could I do something better here? And that's the reason why, obviously, TLS Social Care was born. So I need you to also visualize and think about, the kind of problems that you want to solve. Because if you're looking at your why and your reason, your passion, your purpose, that will help you or help your business to remain sustainable in the long run. Another thing is, what is it that you refuse to compromise on? For me, it was my integrity. Rather, whether or not you make mistakes, because we're all human beings, we make mistakes. And the good thing about CQC is that they fully understand that people do make mistakes. Companies make mistakes, right? And being open and transparent is very important when you're running a care business. For me, it was my social work background, my social work values that, no matter what happens, I'll always be honest. So those are the kind of things that you might need to think about. Has anybody got any questions before we move on to the next slide? So choosing your service type, right? So we've got, obviously, as I said, we're going to look at domiciliary care and supported living, because if we're thinking about care homes, and if you are in this group and you want to start a care home, I think it would be good for us to have a meeting outside of this. But looking at dom care, right? Do we all understand what domiciliary care is all about? Do we know? Yeah?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So obviously it's the support that we provide to people in their own homes, and it can be around their personal care, medication, meals, companionship. It is paid by the hour or by the visit. So local authorities, when they are commissioning dom care, they will negotiate an hourly rate with yourselves as a care provider. As you have just seen, this is not just about building care businesses, it's about building a legacy through care. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.